Hi, my name is Tim Clemens. I'm the former resident hacker of Seattle Police Department, where I specialized in the automatic location, retrieval, review, redaction, and publication of police reports, 911 data, and police videos such as dash cam and body camera videos. I also built instant 911 caller history. So when somebody called 911, a call taker immediately saw not only the 911 calls that came from that number in the last 60 days, but separately any dispatch events that were tied to that number. Additionally, I created a system on request of the chief dispatcher that was put into use by the Real-Time Crime Center as well that allowed staff anywhere in the department to see all of the dispatch messages in real time, to have them highlighted if there was an asterisk to them by a call taker that wanted to mark it as important. Anything with any keywords such as like suspect description or knife, gun, excited delirium. And there was also a map that uh, showed these events that they wanted to know about based on keywords and asterisks. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is how to automate the disclosure of police information. So, there are essentially three ways of automatically disclosing electronic police information. The first way is that a lot of this information is stored textually in what's called SQL databases. These are structured query language databases, and they're stored in many different systems or vendor systems such as Oracle, Microsoft, MySQL, uh, PostgreSQL. Um, and then there are cloud applications or applications where the agency doesn't have access to that database. Or uh, there are media files where uh, you have to use the software program that they provide to access those files in a way that preserves an audit trail. You have to make sure that if you access those files in any way because they are investigative records that will be used in court potentially, you have to make sure that the official audit trail shows that they were pulled by your system, either in response to a disclosure request or for proactive disclosure. And you want to give as much information as possible. Um, so the way to handle software programs on Windows is to use a scraper tool. The one that I used when I was at Seattle Police for Atson, Versaterm, Coban, and an unknown King County warrant website was called Security X. It was originally made by MIT and now is handled by a independent developer. And the way it works is that using the software program, a person takes screenshots of what they want the computer to click on, and then is able to write code in Python. And I think there's other languages as well, like Java and JavaScript. They can say, okay, when you click on this, if you see this button, I want you to type in this or click on that. And so you're able to, over time, figure out how the software that you're trying to automate the different error messages and stuff that you do. And this software allows you to automatically read text. And so I was able to automate the collection of thousands of police reports and body camera videos, warrant information and photographs, and dash camera videos using this technique. The third way is that some vendors are providing what's called an API. This is an application programming interface, is what it's called. And it's an official way for your information technology department to create or have created or use existing off-the-shelf software to pull this information. So what I am going to do is kind of just go through what you want to do with SQL. So for automating the disclosure of records, what you need to do is get what's called the schema of a database, of the SQL database. And what this is so I'm looking at one that was released by the Yakima Police Department for Sector, which is a citations system used in Washington State. So what we have is the table name, the description, what fields have what's called indexes on them, so that the database can very efficiently answer queries. The foreign keys, this is so a database, a SQL database, has lots of tables, and these tables reference each other. Typically, it's called normalization, and it just makes it really easy to really structure information. And then we have the column number, the column name, the type of information it is, constraints, and this just means, like you have to have information in there, and the column description. So your number one priority is to figure out what can I release without any redaction. And then your next step is what can I redact without with very little ease. So like an IP address in a Coban database, for example, you just redact that. You just basically take it out because IP addresses are technology infrastructure, and there's a security exemption for them. And then when you get into something like a police report narrative, what you want to do is, let's start with birthdays. If a birthday if what you do is you compare the birthday to the event and figure out if the person was a juvenile before that incident or when that incident occurred. And if they were, then you redact it. If they weren't, you release it. Social security numbers, there are what's called regular expressions. A social security number has three parts. 3 digits, dash, 2 digits, and I believe 4 digits. So it's a very easy to recognize number. You'll have driver's license IDs. There's a pretty straightforward way to identify those. In Washington State, there is an exemption for victims and witnesses for crimes where they're at risk. Your best bet is to make a very concrete policy of like what those would be, like DV or something like that. And then the officer is supposed to, well, some policies say the officer is to follow the Public Records Act ability for an officer to ask the witness or victim at the time of the incident they want their information disclosed. They'll say no. They're supposed to mark it by policy, agency policy in the system. Usually that'll be a field or something that's in the database. So what I've seen in the past with like Versaterm is that you'll have a table of people that were named in a report. And so each row is going to have, a do not disclose bot. So you're able to take those names, and then in the report, you're able to say, okay, this last name matches one of those people or something like that, and you're able to redact it. Medications, you can, there's gigantic open data lists of medications out there. So you can take one of those and you can auto redact. Um, One of the issues is active investigations, but an investigation is no longer active once charges are filed. So there should be somewhere with a court number somewhere, and you can auto query using one of the three methods I told you about the court database, find out if charges were filed. And your records management system should also have a field. And what you need to do is tell your staff, your detectives, to be very careful about keeping that updated. To when they close out of an investigation, they need to go and mark it as closed. And let's see, I'm trying to think what else here. You know, the main thing is you just need to make a very concrete list of what you need to redact or withhold and when. And you just need to use the information that you have to auto release what doesn't require redaction, and then make a risk assessment. Uh, if at all possible, you want to try to auto redact as much as possible and get that out there. You only want to do precise redaction and release of, say, police records without redaction in response to a public disclosure request, such as like a bot. And the reason why is because open data is not protected by good faith protection under the Public Records Act for releasing data that might have confidential information that might have been exempt or something. So you really need to only do this in response to a public records request. The Public Records Request or Records Act does allow a bot to file a request to an agency once per 24 hours. So that's the way to do it. I mean, if you want, you could bot yourself and get that protection. Let's see. So yeah, that's just kind of a high level overview of how to do this. So there you go.